I have really exciting news. It's probably mostly exciting for me because I've been thinking about this so long. But about 6 months ago, one of my colleagues, Taylor Pastor, who also is a therapist here in Georgia, was running a therapy group called Welcome to the Waiting Room. And if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, then you probably know that that name perfectly encapsulates everything that I talk about, everything that you all are mostly experiencing. Finding the right diagnosis is like constantly, figuratively, and literally being in a waiting room. And so the whole concept of welcome to the waiting room is something that just feels really meaningful and special. So the membership that I started a few months ago, which I don't promote it a whole lot, and I've got to get a little bit better about that, is now called Welcome to the Waiting Room. I was calling it Mentally Well While Chronically Ill, only because that also just felt clear and concise. I knew it wasn't like a cute or clever name. It just was clear. It told you exactly what we were working on, being mentally well while living with a chronic illness. So Welcome to the Waiting Room is the new name of our membership. I hope that you'll join me. The link is in the show notes if you do want to join. And each month you get 2 to 3, sometimes support groups, Friday at noon. It's a general kind of, like, we talk a lot about like managing appointments and the stress of it all, and other group members will give really good advice on what they're working on or how they're getting through certain things. And it's a really good supportive space. It's there's only a couple people that show up each week, so if you like small, that's how it is at this moment. And then starting May 8th, I'm really excited because my good friend and colleague, Jessica Sullivan-Sanchez, she is a sex therapist here in Atlanta, Georgia. And she's going to be running a new group for sex and chronic pain specifically. So she also lives with EDS and understands a lot of the complications that come along with intimacy and chronic pain. So that support group is going to be for folks who are trying to figure out how to be intimate while living with these conditions. And so this group is for people who are just at that place in their life. Like, they really, please know that intimacy is such a sensitive topic and there's no pressure to conform or to perform in ways that you don't want to. So this is a completely optional group for those who just feel like, yeah, they do want to engage more often, but they really just can't because of the physical and emotional aspects that come along with not feeling good enough, not feeling, or being scared that you'll have a painful experience during it. And then there's a lot of shame and embarrassment and things like that. So if that's what you're dealing with and you want support around that, please join our membership. Again, that's going to be Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. And that will be run by my good friend, Jessica Sullivan-Sanchez.
The Chronic Illness Therapist podcast is meant to be a place where people with chronic illnesses can come to feel heard, seen, and safe while listening to mental health therapists and other medical professionals talk about the realities of treating difficult conditions. This might be a new concept for you, one in which you never have to worry about someone inferring that it's all in your head. We dive deep into the human side of treating complex medical conditions and help you find professionals that leave you feeling hopeful for the future. I hope you love what you learn here, and please consider leaving a review or sharing this podcast with someone you love. This podcast is meant for educational purposes only. For specific questions related to your unique circumstances, please contact a licensed medical professional in your state of residence.
Danielle McDowell is a self-described warrior who shares her experiences from being broken and confused to a licensed professional counselor, Virginia Board of Counseling approved supervisor, advocate, best-selling author, and speaker. As a former high school teacher and mental health professional, Danielle channeled her passion for empowering others through coaching and counseling them to identify their assets and uncover their inner warrior mindset. Today, we'll be talking about Danielle's story and how she found purpose through pain. And as always, I think a little caveat is necessary. Finding purpose through your pain is not something that we force. It's not something that you should be doing right now, right here. But along this journey, if you keep taking one step in front of the other, I do think we all tend to come to a place where we do find some kind of meaning or purpose as to why we go through the things that we go through. Maybe it's a little bit less about like this thing needed to happen to make something good happen, and more about this thing did happen regardless of whether we like it or not. And so, can we find something that feels a little bit redeeming that makes this not all worthless? So, hopefully, my conversation today with Danielle will help shed light on that a little bit for you all. Also, I hit record a little bit late when we started this conversation, so you are catching us a little bit in the middle of a sentence, but it's still towards the very beginning of our conversation. So please bear with us as we get the beginning started.
I speak openly about raising a daughter with a serious mental illness and how I got into the field because I used to be a high school teacher prior to her struggles. And so I leaned into mental health to help my own baby, but have been able to help many other people in the process. In recent years, working through fibromyalgia and having a hard time navigating like what that meant for my life and goals that I had already previously kind of sought out and was working towards, and then like getting in a space of almost like despair because like my body was doing what it wanted to do. And so I had all these like things I was actively working on, but my body was like, no, you're not going to do it like in the way you envisioned it. So those symptoms around like body pain, difficulty sleeping, insomnia, like all of these things, brain fog, it like all came to play um, in a way that was really challenging for me because I was pregnant around COVID. I had a baby around that time. He was born, and then these symptoms started showing up. And I was like, what is happening? At first, I thought it was maybe early menopause, right? And doctors were dismissive about like what was happening. So that journey in itself has been really difficult in the last few years.
Yeah. Did you have symptoms, anything pointing to chronic health issues before that that maybe you missed, or it just was not there at all?
It was not there at all. It wasn't. And so I was blindsided when symptoms came because I know I had experienced heart challenges in the past, like in my 30s, but that was like over a decade ago when that happened. And I seemed well up until having my son, and I'm not really sure what happened around that time to cause the symptoms to kind of flare up, but they did. And I felt like I was losing my mind because I was like, how do you 1 minute have plenty of energy, sleep, no brain fog, and then it just happens in that way where my body was hurting and aching and tingly. It just didn't make sense.
Yeah. Can you maybe say a little bit more about just how those symptoms started to impact your life?
Definitely. So we're speaking in a time where I'm licensed and my intentions is to grow a practice. I had this vision of a wellness center prior to my symptoms, and it looked like a wellness center for everyone. Um, but when grief happened first, my grandfather passed, and I had a really hard time navigating like the grief of that. And I was starting to exhibit basic symptoms around feeling tired and not really understanding why like I couldn't get the words out sometimes, or I had this like brain fog moment where like I'm talking to a client and I know this person, like I know this person's name, I know all the things, but it's like not coming to me. And I was really scared, like worried that this may mean that I won't be able to work and I won't be able to continue these things I was doing for my big audacious goals for my life. And so I think it started off with like doing my own research because I went to the doctor and they just would say my blood tests were okay. I think they told me like my vitamin D was low. And so I started taking a vitamin D pill, but everything else looked good. And so they couldn't explain my symptoms. So I got the whole it's stress, depression probably. And I was like, I don't think that that fits perfectly. And so I would challenge that because I was like, I'm a therapist. I kind of know how that works. And I'm not feeling like all of the criteria is not being met for it to be depression. And so I would have to go see other doctors. And so the first doctor, told me it was depression. The second doctor said, your vitamin D low is low, but we don't see anything else. It'll probably just go away on its own time. And I think it was a good 8 months before I finally had a doctor say, this might be fibromyalgia. Uh, and so as I'm hearing your symptoms, I'm going to try you out on a med to see if that helps. And the med did help. And I was like, And
Okay.
so I transitioned to this doctor who said this might be fibromyalgia and started seeing like what kind of quality of life will I be able to now have? Will I need to take meds for the rest of my life? And reevaluating what it meant for me to be all in for my goals, because this health is wealth, like is continuing to like be a foundational value for me. Like I can't be wealthy in these other things that I desire for myself if I don't take care of myself. And so that was the focus. I started to do less and really spend more time working on my inner work and taking care of myself. And so I've been able to slowly pick some things back up, but also be very mindful not to overdo it.
Yeah. That I was going to ask, what are some of the things you did to take care of yourself? And doing less sounds like it's one of them. Um,
Mhm.
Meanwhile, you are still running your practice, and so maybe you can talk about what it's like to still do what you want to do while also doing less and taking care of yourself.
Well, the first thing was to accept that I'm not a robot, and I really need to be more conscious about thinking about my yeses and ensuring that I am not overextending myself too much, where I will have a big setback. Because the meds help me rest, and it helps to deal with the pain. But if I overdo it, no pill will stop me from hurting for days sometimes. So I got conscious there. I started using like support from like interns to do some of that like administrative things. And that was helpful. And I decreased my caseload. And I got really conscious about like how many individuals I was supporting and when I was doing that. And I took some of my like goals that were kind of short term and made them more long term. And so it gave me more time to focus on them. And that helped me quite a bit. And then I just kept educating myself around like holistic ways to navigate my symptoms outside of just medication. And so, like, meditation grounding has been really big, like watching what I'm eating, because there are particular foods that can sometimes make my symptoms worse, and making sure that I give myself enough time to sleep has
Yeah.
been helpful. And then talking about it. Like I have met people who have the same diagnosis, who's been like supportive in when I'm crying and when I'm just like feeling overwhelmed and down because like my mind wants to do something and my body is like, not today, girl. And you need like supportive people who understand. And I've noticed that that's been really different than just like people who don't get it.
Yeah.
Those who actually have the symptoms can relate and show empathy in a really powerful way. And so all those things were helpful for me.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm curious, as you talked a little bit about what you kind of reduced at work, and I also really loved giving yourself more time, like a task or a project, this passion project that I'm doing doesn't have to be done this month. It could be done this year. I
yeah.
I I resonate with that. Um, what about at home? Like, what did your home life look like? Did you do less at home, or were you more intentional there in any way?
I had to do less at home. So like I have 5 kids total. The oldest is like 25 and then the youngest is 3. And so we have two smaller. So we have a 14-year-old at home now and a 3. All the older ones are out of the home. And my focus with COVID was being home, working my job, and attending to them, right? And so for a time, I was not really a stay-at-home mom because I was still working my private practice, but my smallest kid was here with me. And so I was attending to daycare here and there, and then seeing clients in between. I learned like that was too much. And so we put them in daycare, and that helped. So both the kids are out during the day. I only have to focus on my clients. And so that was one benefit. I also knew like weekends were like clean up and do laundry days for me. And I would be exhausted because like you work the whole week, and then you still spend Saturday cleaning up and washing. And so I would move back into Monday tired. And so I got comfortable with using money to pay someone to come in and help twice a month to take some of the load off of the getting all the things done. And I was able to move into my weeks easier, and my body didn't feel so beat down and tired. So I navigated that way. I got comfortable with knowing that I wasn't going to be someone who cooked a meal every night for my kids, and that's okay, right? And
Did you used to do that and then you stopped, or was it probably just shame that you never did it? Or
honest shame around all of it. Like I feel some type of way that like sometimes I can't take care of my kids, wash the clothes, have the energy to play the games with them. And so I do have to like combat those feelings because I think sometimes perceive myself as to being a robot in some ways, because I was raised with a woman who my mother seemed like she did it all gracefully, right? My grandmother too. Like I would wonder like, what about me is so different that I can't do all the things that they did?
Yeah.
And I have been grateful that I've talked to them recently about like what that looked like for me. And I'm able to hear that it was really hard for them. They just didn't show me that side of themselves as
It
a
is
child.
good to hear. Yeah. I was
And
also curious, did they have a support network that we don't tend to have in this generation? Or was it just, no, they just did it and it was really hard and wore themselves thin?
yeah, I think it was a little bit of both. And so like I remember in my childhood spending time with like cousins. And I think mom got some breaks then when we stayed there, or she would drop us off at the grandparents' house. So I think there were like some built-in supports, but for the most part, like they managed things, like, and they had that kind of spirit where you just got to get it done. And so I think both, but me growing up, it seemed like it was effortless. Like they cooked the meals, they cleaned the things, they ironed the clothes, like everything was always where it needed to be in the house. They was just well put together. And when I was doing it, I was like, how? Like this is a whole lot. And my husband helps quite a bit, right? It still was too much. And so I think one of the things that I've been able to give myself is some grace around knowing that my body doesn't always allow me to move that way, and that's okay. And it's about having a better quality of life. And so I'm really conscious that I can feel some type of way about it and it still be the best choice for me. And that's okay.
I feel like you're sharing my story this whole interview so far. It's a lot of the same. Yeah, it is hard. And I guess I always wonder like what did those generations have that maybe we don't have? I don't know if it's an increased pressure in our careers, or if it's even just intergenerational trauma. They did it all so gracefully, but what was stored in their body that was then passed down to us. There's a lot of theories that go through my head. Do you have any theories like that?
Definitely, I feel all of that. And to this day, my mom is fighting cancer in her body, and I wonder like what stress um played a part in those symptoms showing up in the way they did. So I totally understand, like in my DNA, I gained like some good stuff, some resilience and some ability to navigate hard things, but I also carry the heaviness too that they all have experienced. And like I can look and see that there were some benefits for them in some ways around like their village that I might not necessarily have the same of, but they did like the laborious jobs where they were on their hands, they used their hands, their feet, and it was taxing on the body. Like therapy is taxing, but it's not labor intensive on my body in the same way.
Right.
And so there are some benefits that I get to choose what work looks like in ways that they didn't. Like, and so I'm conscious of that, but I know it's like inner layers of like positive things that I've gained, and then some things that are just difficult, and that's just what it is, right? But I'm grateful that I can talk to them openly and gain wisdom now and understanding what it would have been like to be a woman in their time.
Yeah. Are there any messages that come to mind for you that you would want to share with the audience? Like, yeah.
One of the big things that I've gained is I need to be more honest with my kids about the hard parts, right? And don't paint this picture that it is easier than it really is, because I don't want my children or my grandbabies now, because I got two grandbaby girls, like to grow up in a world where they see me be robotic and they think they must also be that way. And so I'm challenging that as I'm learning. And it's really interesting because like one of our older kids is like 22 now. And she saw me in points where I thought the best thing to show her was strong strength, never bothered by things. And I have later in life realized that that's harmful. And so she is learning and unlearning things that I unconsciously taught her. And I'm being more open and showing her um, behind the scenes, behind the closed door. This is what it looks like, right? And I want you to know that it's not perfect in here either. I'm just presenting to the world that I'm strong, but I want you to know that you, in order to be truly in a healthy way strong, you need weakness sometimes too, and like can coexist. And so, like I think the lesson that I share with your listeners is, we do the best we can, and as we gain more information, we should change how we're navigating things and take ownership and accountability when we do things to people or cause harm, even if it's harm we didn't expect to cause. Because my mom didn't see it as harm when she didn't show me those pieces of herself. She thought she was doing the right thing. And so in return, I thought that that was how I should navigate it too, until I learned differently. And that's okay.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a big part of it is learning to take accountability, apologize. It doesn't mean you were maliciously, intentionally trying to harm. I think that's what sometimes stops people from apologizing. It's like, well, if I admit that I was wrong, then it means I was evil and bad. And it's like, no, we all make mistakes and we repair them through proper apology and then changed behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that simple, but that hard too.
So hard. So hard. And when you don't grow up with like learning how to apologize, and that's not a part of your family culture, then it's hard. How did you kind of learn? I mean, obviously, you got into this field, right? So personal development and growth and flexible mindset, all of those things are important to you. But I'm curious if you have like, was it certain experiences or was it just your desire to learn and grow? Like what helped you learn how to embody apology and changed behavior?
I like this question because I think it's one of those questions where I'm still part of the evolution and the journey around sitting in it sometimes, because I think even recently I apologized to my daughter because I wasn't hearing her at a space and time when she shared with me, Mom, I knew you were there for me, like, and you kept a roof over my head and you took care of me, but I needed you to be more present, right? And when she was saying it to me, I immediately was defensive. My response was like, I had to take care of you. Like, Like, you don't understand. I was working these jobs so that you could have a nice childhood. And like, in order for you to do the things you enjoyed, I had to work. Like, it was what I did. And that response dismissed what she was trying to tell me. Like, she literally was just saying, Mom, I see why you were doing it, but I needed you to do something different. And like, recently I heard on a TikTok a son talk about the same thing with his mother. And it like turned on a light bulb for me. And I was able to go back and recall that conversation and be like, I should have handled that differently. It wasn't time for me to be defensive. It was time for me to really hear what she was saying to me, and then take accountability for not giving her that thing that she needed. And when I saw it, like the TikTok, I was crying like a baby. And then I responded to my daughter and I said, I finally get what you were saying to me. Like, and it's taken a long time. And I share this example with you because it is a journey for me. I think part of it is understanding that the way that my mother and my grandmother navigated the world was in like a survival place. And for most of my 20s, I had that same survival mentality where it was like, I need to be doing everything possible to make sure we eat, that we're safe, we have a nice home. And then I was able to check all those boxes. And it took me a very long time to turn off survival mode and understand like the next space and time is like, I can just be here. I don't have to be fight, flight, or freeze all the time now. I can just sit in this. And so I've been afforded opportunity to sit in this world and be in this space without being in survival mode. And it's giving me space to reevaluate how I've shown up as a mother and as a human and be more accountable along the way. But I'm still like flawed and human. And so like it's still work to be done, but I am grateful like that I am in this world in a time where my mother and my grandmother's sacrifices have given me opportunity to just be. And I'm hopeful that my grandchildren will be afforded even more space to just be off the sacrifices of my life.
Absolutely. Yeah. The vulnerability, right, and sharing these stories is how we learn. It's how we teach to others. It's not in like, oh, I figured out this 3-step process to be better at apologizing. It's like, no, we just have to witness other people being vulnerable and apologizing and sharing their stories, which we don't have. We don't have those villages anymore. My husband likes to remind me that the villages were not perfect. He thinks I put it on a pedestal, and I'm like, no, of course they weren't, but neither is what we're experiencing here. So, yeah, I mean, even something as some like as um even something like giving birth is we would watch other women. Husbands weren't even a part of the birthing experience. It was other women, and you saw this and then you learned and through seeing and everything, emotional health, learning to be disciplined, learning to be a hard worker without going into survival mode. I mean, survival mode, I think, gets turned on because we're all so alone on top of the trauma that happens in this world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting to be in a space where we can consider those things. Like I was talking to my twin sister and I was saying like, I don't see a time where my mom or my grandmother could have sat down and talked about feelings and like how this generation is responding to how we are moving in the world. They just didn't have space and time to do that. And so what a blessing we have to be able to consider those layers too, and hopefully improve like the emotional capacity for others, knowing that we have opportunity to consider what that looks like based on choices we make.
Yeah. It reminds me just of, an oldie but a goodie, but Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I mean, when you're in that basic, when your basic needs are not met, you don't have the space to be able to sit here and have these conversations.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. No, not at all. Yeah. Yeah. It's on the shoulders of our ancestors
Yeah.
that we have space to do this.
Right. Yeah. And I think too, like think it's just important. I think the world happens in cycles,
Mhm.
problems and trauma. It is our job and our role and our responsibility to make the world a better place. And hopefully we always leave the world better than the way it was when we came in. But new traumas are going to happen in different parts of the world. And then those traumas are going to cycle through and come to an end. And they might be in a better place than we are. And I
Mhm.
think it's so important. Our pain works the same way, right? With flare-ups and cycles. And you mentioned earlier, like the brain fog and the memory issues made you feel like, can I do my job? Like I have to rely on my memory to be a good therapist.
Yeah.
Um, and that's one of the things that helps me stay in control of the fear that happens with my own symptoms. It's like this comes in cycles. So my memory is lapsing today. I'm not recalling things, but this isn't like, oh no, it's linearly going to go, downhill from here. This is turning into Alzheimer's. This is turning into it doesn't happen like that. The fear doesn't happen like that anymore. It's like, okay, this is a day where it's bad and it's going to get good again. And then it's going to get bad again and good again. Like it's going to cycle through.
Yeah, yeah. I think what it has done in my life is it's giving me a different way of viewing how other humans are navigating the world in real time. Because before my symptoms, I didn't realize that the ability to just move in the world without hurting and without difficulty recalling is one of those gifts that I didn't take seriously until I started having problems with it. And when others would tell me about it, because I have family members who struggle, like I would empathize, but I had no real understanding of what it all meant until it happened to me. And so now that it has happened to me, I see people in a way that I didn't before, and it provides a space of humility for me and being more honest about like the blessings that I get every morning that I just don't take seriously until they're not showing up in that same way.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It gives you it's an interesting concept when you have to go through something yourself to understand it because you wouldn't wish it upon anybody. And
Mhm.
also we want to be understood and we want to be heard, but I wouldn't want you to go through what I'm going through. So it's an interesting dynamic.
It is. It is. And it's also like sometimes challenging for me personally to explain and express to people I love. Like, uh, and I think I get offended a lot when it's like assumed like maybe I'm being lazy or I'm being overly dramatic. And I'm like, no, like y'all just don't get it. Like 'cause you have to feel it, I think, to really understand that. And so I sometimes struggle with like how people are viewing me when I'm responding in real time to something that's happening to me.
Yeah. I think people's fear of just they can't touch that because it's like if I empathize with you or I understand, it puts me too close to feeling what that would be like if I were in those shoes and I can't go there. It's not a conscious thought, but I think that that's kind of internally what happens.
Mm-hmm. And people tend to want to tell you things that'll help you feel better. And sometimes, like, I don't need that. Like, don't tell me it's gonna get better. I don't want to hear that right now. Like, I'm like hurting right now. So just say I see that this is hard for you.
Right.
I can't even imagine what that feels like. That's what I want you to say to me, not that it's gonna get better. Like, let me feel how I feel about it right now.
Yes.
And I'll come back around to that eventually, but I ain't there right now. And that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, finding people who can really be in it with you. It's like you mentioned that earlier, and it's really difficult. I think too, I talk a lot about, finding support and community. It's so important, I think, to have both, where you have people who when I encourage clients to reach out for support, it doesn't always mean just when you're in the thick of crying and feeling depressed and feeling, hopeless and in despair. It is great when we have those people we can reach out to in those moments, but it also means looking for the people who will just go on a walk with you or like just eat lunch with you and like consistently having those healthy social interactions where it has nothing to do with your pain and you venting and talking about it, and it's just more about you connecting with the person in front of you. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, we definitely need those moments where they're just like regular, like I can be in this space and it just be about enjoying a meal, enjoying time with a friend. Like, definitely, it's important.
Yeah. But when you find someone who gets it, that is a gold, it's a gold star you don't let go of.
Indeed, indeed, we do. Yeah, yeah.
What else comes up around your story that feels like lessons learned or um, you mentioned being open to talking about a child with mental illness. So whatever feels comfortable for you, and respects them as well. But what has that been like in addition to living with your own pain?
Well, my daughter struggled. I think her struggle starts around 10 when she's about 10 years old. At that time, I was a high school teacher. Um, for some backstory, for context, the first 10 years, she was like the perfect kid. Very smart, very social. People enjoyed being around her, very respectful. And I had her when I was 17. I got pregnant, I think, when I was 16. And so I was a young mother. And I didn't know what I was doing. Like, I was just like, okay, we just gonna do this thing called mothering and figure it out. And early on, she was such a good kid that everybody was like, how do you raise a child? And like I think in my like ego space, I was like, yeah, I'm doing that, right? I raised her to be this way. I didn't know why she was that way. I was just trying to learn how to be her mama. But because she was so good, I think I thought that the way I was parenting her was one of the reasons why. And so it was a light bulb that kind of went off when she was around 10. And at first I thought it was like a hormonal thing. Um, and she just overnight was a different person. Like it was like aggressive behaviors, like acting out behaviors, like really night and day. And I was taken back because I didn't understand what this was. I later learned that her father had the same diagnosis. It was hereditary. He didn't know what it was. I thought when he was acting out, that was his personality. Like he would just be extra sometime. And I didn't learn later that that was actually his condition and that she had it too. So for many years, I was learning everything I needed to learn to help my baby. Like was still in the classroom, but I started learning about mental health and being interested in helping out in like the special education classrooms because I noticed that there were there were young people that were having similar challenges. And as I was learning more, I wanted to be in spaces and be supportive of them. And during these years, I was like, I think like instead of being a teacher, I should do something in mental health. And so I transitioned out of the classroom, did a lot of community mental health work. As my daughter was doing better, people were like, what are you doing? Like, I'm noticing that there's a change again. And so I would share what I was learning with other families, and just supporting people in that way. And during this time, while I was helping out in my community, I was like, I should be a therapist. I think that this is in my wheelhouse. And so I went back and got my master's degree to become a therapist. And in that time, she has now grown up. She's a grown woman. She's the one that has my two grandbabies. She's doing really, really well. And I think my clinical background, my professional background has helped me to improve my relationship with her. But it's also given me more meaning on the journey. And I think like God like throws things like in the path. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like this wellness idea, this wellness center came to me before I was even licensed. And I didn't understand it, but it was like I envisioned a holistic center where you can go in and learn about how to eat well, sound healing, yoga, meditation, like a garden in the back to help like grow natural food. Like it's this beautiful place where you go and you take care of yourself. And I saw this vision prior to me being sick, prior to me being licensed. But along this journey, like I've realized like people who are struggling with like autoimmune diseases could really benefit from that. And so I was like, I think I'm supposed to make it for them. And everybody else can come. But the specific focus will be to help people like me. Like when I learned about what fibromyalgia was, it was like not a lot of good resources to help make it clear. Like these are all the ways to address symptoms, to bring health, and to help to calm down some of the pain and the difficulty sleeping. And so now that I'm learning and I'm doing these things, like I want it all under one roof. And I think my whole life journey has led me to that long goal for myself, in really indirect ways, but it was purposeful. Like I needed to be a teacher because I teach quite a bit still, but I'm not a teacher. And I also needed to understand mental health, not just for my baby, but to understand how to help others. And now that I'm experiencing this thing in my body, it's also giving me opportunity and space to feel like, how can I help someone similar to me that might be having the same struggle? And so I hope I answered your question, but yeah, it has
Yeah.
been a life journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think we are moving more and more towards kind of these holistic, everything under one roof kind of places, because for so long we've been so specialized and like there's the heart doctor and then there's the leg doctor and it's like the leg and the heart are connected, like they're not separate really. These specialties are amazing, and I say like I specialize in chronic illness as a mental health therapist, but it's still holistic. It's still, like you said, it's everything that encompasses our life. So relationships, and yeah, I don't teach a diet or anything, but like eating well that in a way that suits you, and movement, and your work life, your finances, all of that.
Yeah.
I'm curious if for you, I know for me, like my pain tends to get, I'm able to have more compassion and more like empathy, and even sometimes just less pain just from knowing so much about how the body works.
Mhm.
I'm wondering if you had mentioned something with your journey with your daughter and she started kind of to get better, and if it was really a lot of just you being able to validate once you were learning about how the brain worked.
Yeah, I think that was a big piece of it. And what I gained mostly from like all of this like learning is that we all are different humans. We live in a world where we want to make everyone squares, and everyone isn't a square. Like I'm a star, not a square. My daughter might be a circle, and that's okay. And so me understanding that like deeply and then translating it to others, that it's okay that you see the world differently, that you navigate feeling differently. I care less about the title and more about what do we do now that we have this information, and then help to normalize that like all these things are just things. They don't necessarily have to ruin our lives. We just need to be clear, like this is what it is and these are things that help us. And so I walk and live in the world that way. I try to really normalize things for everyone, no matter what the thing is.
Yeah, I really, yeah, just being someone else's community, right?
Uh-huh.
Holding space and
Mhm.
walking alongside,
Mhm.
with knowledge and with wisdom, which comes as we age. But yeah, it's important to have people who can walk with us. It's not about, again, the like 3-step process to trauma healing. There's a lot of that online right now.
Oh, yeah, and
Mhm.
indeed, or TikTok where you just watch this video and you won't have anxiety anymore. I'm like, okay, good
I
luck.
know. And like, yeah, it can be frustrating sometimes. I'll read the comments on these videos and it's like, I learned more in this 30-second clip than my therapist ever taught me. And I'm like, okay, maybe you had a bad therapist, maybe. But also sometimes it's kind of like you said, that one TikTok helped put into perspective something for you. It's something you had already been learning about and already moving through. And then somebody said a sound bite that
Yeah.
did everything you learned already clicked. And if
Mhm.
you hadn't been doing all that work already, that 30-second video was not going to just change your life.
Nope.
It's all of it together.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it's generational work. Like I do a lot of couples work now. And like I truly believe that if I can help a couple become healthy, I help change generations because then they model that to their kids who model it to their kids. And it is generational. Like just being able to demonstrate how to be a better mother or a better wife helps my family and helps generations. And so it's necessary work.
Yeah, it's interesting. And just kind of thinking about sometimes like therapists who work with kids are like, I can't handle the parents, so I work with kids. And it's like, well, that's
Well, that's
don't
not
know how that's gonna.
yeah, yeah, we gotta help the whole family. Like I get
Yeah,
it. I get it.
yeah,
I get it. Uh-huh.
yeah,
Family systems always like there's not there's typically never just one person. Like the whole family has to adjust how they're navigating in a system for that to it's heavy work though. Like I used to love saucy teenagers. They were my favorite. But like I would have a hard time like trying to get their parents to know that you have to change some things too. And like I need you to come on up in these sessions and we work on how you both communicate and manage conflict because then that helps her
yeah,
navigate differently. And so it is heavy lifting to take on that child and the whole family, but it's so necessary. So necessary.
totally. Yeah, it is. It's really hard work, which brings me back to kind of that idea of community and doing that work as therapists, really not even trying to do that solo, like having a team where you work as a family clinic.
Mhm.
I wonder, I don't know of any. And in my area, do you know of any in your area?
I don't, but
Yeah.
it's or in work. Like I noticed like even in my own family, like if I just took one of the kids to therapy, no, we all needed to be knowing how to navigate this and deal with like our own stuff that can cause things to feel and be the way it is. So, yeah, I don't know any companies that are doing it, but it would be really beneficial.
Yes. Last year I tried to do a group over the summer where it was going to be 8 group therapy sessions for the teens and 4 for the parents, all with teens who had chronic illnesses. And I had some parents interested, but man, trying to get groups together and like everyone to commit and to pay and to meet at the same time and to attend every set, it's like really, really hard. So that's why that didn't happen. But I think I'm gonna try again this summer with my APC who loves working with teens and I love working with parents. So I think that might be a good team. We'll see if it goes through.
Yeah, yeah, I'm loving that. Definitely.
Yeah.
It's needed. There's so many families that can benefit from that.
Yeah, you're right though. It's so important that everyone's just on board and it's not that everyone has to even agree with everything that's being said in therapy, but everyone needs to have that same kind of foundational knowledge. So we have this kind of working, this kind of foundation of like, okay, I at least know what you're working with here, even if I don't quite agree. So,
Yeah, 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 yeah. I think some of the big challenges is we're still like pushing against stigmas too and what therapy is. I noticed like many times I am educating people on what therapy actually even is. Because many people seem to still think you have to be quote unquote crazy, and that is not what therapy is. Like, it is beneficial. I would say everyone needs a therapist. Like,
yeah,
there's opportunity for us all to do better and being more self-aware about how we show up in the world and help to improve skills that we struggle with because we all have something.
yeah, yeah. I have been lately finding myself also, especially with the economy and money, right? I'm a private pay practice. And so, and I pay my own therapist out of pocket. I don't use insurance. And so money is also a big part of all of this and how we spend our money. But I liken therapy to, it's this, yes, it's a paid relationship, but it's a mentorship relationship. It,
Mhm.
it's it's one where somebody is walking beside you, and yes, they have skills and knowledge that you might not have, but they're not the expert in like what you should do with your life. They're just sharing with you, and you're sharing with them, and that relationship is what helps you grow and develop emotionally.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think one, there's the stigma of you have to be crazy to be in therapy. But then I think even when you can get past that, it also feels like therapy is this place where they're supposed to give me the answers.
Yeah, yeah. And I quickly say you will not gain codependency with Danielle. Like the intention is for me to get you less to be in a space where you're out in the world and you're thinking, what would Danielle do? Because if you're doing that, you're still not where I need you to be. I need you to be in the moment thinking about, what should I do? So I can go back and tell Danielle what I decided to do. And we can
Totally.
that choice. And I said, if your train of thoughts aren't going that way, then I'm doing you a disservice because I'm saying to you that you don't have capacity to make good choices for yourself. And I believe we all get to make choices for ourselves, right? So you don't need me to do that part for you. You just need me to be sitting and showing you what I see as you're making choices so that you can ensure that those are the choices that are the best for you in this moment, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
To clarify.
uh-huh. No, because therapy shouldn't be where someone is telling you how to live and think.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. And just to kind of add to that, I do have clients who are like, I thought about what you said, and that is totally fine. It's, you can bring me with you in your mind and in your week to week life, but it shouldn't be from a place of like, I need to make Destiny proud or I need to like do right by her. It's like, no.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hopefully you do hear some of the things that I've said and that grounds you and centers you, and then you internalize that for yourself and you keep on walking towards what's right for you.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Is there anything else we haven't touched on today that feels important to you that you wanted to share or talk about?
I just want to encourage your listeners to get comfortable with doing their own work, whatever that looks like, and give themselves grace. Like it's really important in this life journey to understand that we do the best we can with what we have, and when we gain more information, we get to make different choices. And it's not beneficial to sit and what you would have, should have, could have done. It's better to just understand that this is where I am now and my next choice will be my best choice. And so that's what I'd like to add and share with your listeners.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that.
All right. Take care.
The Chronic Illness Therapist podcast is meant to be a place where people with chronic illnesses can come to feel heard, seen, and safe while listening to mental health therapists and other medical professionals talk about the realities of treating difficult conditions. This might be a new concept for you, one in which you never have to worry about someone inferring that it's all in your head. We dive deep into the human side of treating complex medical conditions and help you find professionals that leave you feeling hopeful for the future. I hope you love what you learned here, and please consider leaving a review or sharing this podcast with someone you love. This podcast is meant for educational purposes only. For specific questions related to your unique circumstances, please contact a licensed medical professional in your state of residence.